I've been teaching authors how to promote their books for over 15 years. And during that time, I have racked my brain for ways to make marketing easier for authors. In 2013, I started building tools to do just that. It started out with WordPress plugins to make it easier for authors to sell books on their websites and get booked to speak. And then in 2019, I created the podcast host directory. This turned out to be a popular tool, but then something happened. A couple of months ago, I built another tool for authors, and then another, and then another. And soon I had a dozen tools, and then 2 dozen, and then 3 dozen. Things have gotten out of hand, and it's time I told you all about it. In this episode of Novel Marketing, the longest running book marketing podcast in the world. And actually, instead of telling you about it, I'm going to show you those tools right now. So here we are at a new page that I've created called the Patron Toolbox. This is at authormedia.com. You can get here at any time from any page. You just go to Resources, Patron Toolbox, and I'm going to walk you through some of the tools that I have built. The first is called AI Thomas. This is an AI chatbot that's trained on over 500 novel marketing podcast episodes and my other podcast episodes on other podcasts related to publishing and book marketing. And this is really good at answering book marketing questions. So let's say we have the question, how do I launch a book? So we'll type this in. Now I have written dozens of episodes on launching books. And this AI chatbot will then read all of those blog posts for those episodes and then generate an answer. And then you can ask it for clarifying questions, but it will build out a whole plan for you, talking about creating a launch team and email sequence. It's got the whole thing right here. But here at the end is the very best part. It will cite its sources. So it will link to all of the episodes and blog posts that it used to generate that answer. This has been an invaluable tool. This tool's been around for a little while. We've been testing it. I recently changed which AI model it runs on, and it's much better now. And it has more episodes. So it keeps getting better. Every time we do a new episode of novel marketing, or at least every time we remember to add it to the data set for this model, this gets better and better. So that's AI Thomas, and that's like your coach in a box. Almost all of the questions that people email me can be answered if they asked AI Thomas. So now let's talk about the blurb generators. One big challenge for authors is describing their book in a compelling way. As authors, we have this thing called the curse of knowledge, where we know so much, it's hard to distill what we know into actionable steps. At the Novel Marketing Conference this year, I gave a talk on how to create a pitch for your book. And a little while after the conference, I had an aha that the step-by-step approach that I used in that session, I could actually build a tool that would walk authors through that very approach. So I took the different pitches from that presentation and I built a tool on it. Let me show you how this works. You type in the title of the book, and then step 1, who is your primary protagonist? And then step 2, state your protagonist's initial desire. What does your protagonist want? And step 3, who or what prevents your protagonist from getting what he wants? So we're going to say, before Luke can leave, he must find the droids that were lost. And then we're going to tease the twist. So this is the kind of the inciting moment early in Act 1 is what I'd recommend using here. So don't give away any spoilers here. If we submit this, it will then take the answers to these 4 questions and create a back cover copy. So it's going to create a 3-paragraph back cover copy, which is what it's generating right now. And then it will create a 1-paragraph pitch, which I find to be often really, really helpful. And then it will create a 1-sentence pitch. It will also generate alternate book title ideas and suggested subtitles. You can pause the video here if you want to read it yourself. This is really helpful in giving you something to start with. And what's cool about these pitch generators is that I have more than one, and they each have kind of a different philosophy. So the fiction one is all about the protagonist and what the protagonist wants. The nonfiction one, this one is all about the reader. Describe your target reader. What is your reader's desire? What's the obstacle in the way? How will this book help the reader overcome that obstacle? And then visualize the happy ending for the reader. Generates a really, really solid back cover copy. The sci-fi and fantasy one, in my presentation, I called this the setting pitch. It's not just for sci-fi and fantasy, but it tends to work best for sci-fi and fantasy, because it makes a big emphasis on the setting of the story. So it's got questions here about the setting. And so you answer these 6 questions, and then it will generate the back cover copy for you. The mystery, thriller, and suspense. This is what I call the plot pitch, which really focuses on the plot of the story. This will give you a very different pitch. And what I recommend you do is you try each one of these and see which one works best for your book. And then you take that and you build from it. Then there's a romance pitch. And then finally, the pitch optimizer. So this one works very differently. You just give your genre of your book, the title of your book, and the current description of your book. You paste that in here, and then it will optimize your pitch to make it more effective. So those are the blurb generators. And now let's talk about the website tools. So this is a new tool I just built, the homepage scanner. And you just put in your website address, and it will scan it. So let's troll Jonathan Sugar. He doesn't know I'm doing this, but I'm going to put his website in here, and we'll see what the homepage reviewer thinks. So it will review the SEO of the website, and so that specifically the title and meta description, and give feedback on that. He doesn't have a meta description, so it's pointing that out. So it will point out then strengths, and then it will point out areas for improvement, right? And so what I do in my website reviews episodes from time to time, you can get that for your website just by pasting in your homepage right here, and it will generate a whole report. Things are doing well and things you need to improve. The next tool is the About Page Builder. This is a lot of fun. If you're having trouble with writing your About page, you can put in your full name, your genre, some personality traits, some quirky facts, why you write. So it's a bunch of questions here, but it will then generate a big, long About page for you. If you've listened to my episode about how to make your About page less boring and more interesting, some of these questions will seem very similar or very familiar to you. And it was that episode, I basically weaponized that episode into this tool. So the podcast and these tools are going hand in hand. So what the tool is going to do is it's going to generate a narrative for this author that can be then used in the About page. So this is the About Page Builder. And we also have an About Page Scanner. So this works just like the homepage scanner, but instead it's trained on my episodes on About Pages and what makes for good author About Pages. So that's what's fun about these tools, is that they're specifically like the novel marketing version of that tool, where I have tuned it to give my advice, but applied specifically to this page. So what the page does well and areas where the page needs improvement. So you can get feedback on your specific About page. You just paste in the URL, click scan. It's very easy. We also have the landing page drafter. This is a tool that I built specifically for the Send Your First Email Challenge, which you actually don't have to be a patron. If you go through the Send Your First Email Challenge, you can get access to this particular tool for free. So this drafts a landing page text for you, and it can create one of 3 kinds of landing pages: an email newsletter, which helps you get more subscribers, a book for sale, or a free reader magnet. So we're going to say an email newsletter here, and I have examples from my brother David. So we'll click submit. So it'll give some headline options. It crafts from what I gave it this really good landing page, which you can pause and read it if you'd like. So that's the landing page drafter. So now let's go down to book covers. I'm going to start here with the design brief generator. Authors often struggle with communicating with designers to explain what they want. So this is actually surprisingly simple. You just upload your book manuscript, you put the title, you put the book description, which again, there's a tool to help you build this, and then your subcategory, and you click create brief. And this will create a brief for you to share with a graphic designer based off of my episode, How to Create a Design Brief for Your Book Cover. And so it takes everything I teach in that episode and it builds off of that to create you a rough draft. So you answer those questions. It will then generate the brief. So here it says book cover design brief for Pilgrim's Progress Reloaded. It's got the title, author, and genre. Remember, it read the entire book. So it's going to generate visual elements based off of the book, and it will come up with a color palette. Now, as you read through this, you may disagree with this, but this is what's wonderful. It's a template based off of your book, so you can tweak before you send it to the designer. Also has some notes. So you just copy this into a Word doc, you tweak it, and now you've got a design brief to get an amazing book cover. So that's the design brief generator. Now the book cover analyzer is pretty simple. You just upload your book cover and it will evaluate it for you. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to use the cover for Semper Die, which again, Jonathan Sugar's brand new book that just came out. He didn't design this book cover, his publisher did. Now, you'll notice it doesn't ask for the genre and it doesn't ask for the title of the book, because part of the purpose of this tool is to see if it can accurately ascertain the genre of the book just from the cover, because a good cover communicates the genre without any other information. So it's picking up on the military theme, the zombie elements, and the patriotism. The cover suggests a blend of military science fiction and horror, so it's nailing it. So this is a good cover. And then it will analyze the thumbnail visibility, the design effectiveness, and it will always give some suggestions for improvement. You'll never get a perfect score. There's no such thing as a perfect cover. But this cover actually is doing pretty good. So that's the cover analyzer. And so now the book cover designer. This is a brand new tool. I was working on it just yesterday. So it's still in the works and there's still some bugs that we're working out. But I want to demonstrate how it works. So there's a book I've always wanted to write, actually a book trilogy about King Cyrus. So I've put in some info. It's Persian historical fiction. The primary visual element is a peasant boy holding a wooden scimitar. The title is The Peasant Prince. The author name is Thomas Umstattd Jr. And then you can pick the style, right? So we have hyper-realistic, illustrated, minimalistic. I'm going to select cinematic here. And I'm going to put a little bit of description of the book here as well. And then we're going to click Generate Cover. So here we go. It generated this cover. Now, The Peasant Prince. So it's a story of King Cyrus. If you don't know the historical story of King Cyrus, Emperor Cyrus started off as the son of a pig farmer. Or at least he thought he was the son of a pig farmer. It turned out his grandfather was the emperor. It's quite an interesting story. You can read all about it, Herodotus, and who knows, maybe I'll write this book someday. But this isn't bad. This isn't for your actual book cover, but I do think for reader magnets, you can create really solid book covers very quickly using this tool. So this is the book cover designer. My goal with this is not to replace designers for actual books, but for reader magnets particularly, I'd love to elevate the quality of the reader magnet covers, which will help you grow your email list faster. And we are just getting started. So the next tool is the podcast host directory. I already talked to you about that. So now let's talk about the publishing tools. These tools are designed to help you put together a book proposal. So we have several. We have a plot synopsizer, a chapter summarizer, a query letter writer, a book proposal generator, and a book title brainstormer. So let's start actually here at the end with the book title brainstormer. And these are based off of my episodes, How to Pick a Strong Book Title and How to Rank in Amazon Search Results with Dave Chesson. So something a lot of authors don't know is that your book title is one of the most important elements for your book to rank in terms of Amazon search results. And remember, Amazon's the biggest bookstore, but it's really a search engine. So this will help you with that. So you upload your manuscript. You're not required to do this, but it will help. You pick fiction or nonfiction, and then you pick your category, your back cover copy, and what kind of words a reader might type into Amazon to find a book like this. For an example, I'm going to use Semper Die by Jonathan Sugar. So we have the back cover copy, we have the category, and we have Marines versus Zombies as something people might search on Amazon for. And so we will generate some more book title ideas. I don't think we're going to get a better book title idea than Semper Die, although it did suggest Semper Die, even though at no point was that in the answers. So it did see lock, load, Semper Fi, Semper Die. So it saw it here, and so it's like, that's a really good phrase, and it suggests it as the number one title. We also have Dead Watch, Terminal Order, Quantico Fall, Undead Zone, Alpha. So it's generating some short titles. It will generate some long titles. It'll also generate some super creative titles, Rot and Rifleman, Teeth, Tactics, and Terror. And then it will generate 24 search optimized titles. So this probably is not going to generate the title for your book, although it did in this particular example. It nailed the title. But the idea is that it will get the creative juices flowing as you're brainstorming titles for your book. This is a really useful tool. So this is a plot synopsizer. I created this because authors hate writing synopsis for their book, but you need one for proposals, and occasionally you need them for some other purposes. And this is really easy. You just upload your book and it will generate a plot synopsis for you. So we'll run this through. It does struggle currently with books that are over 250 pages. And my brother's book is over 250 pages, but it is creating a plot synopsis. And I will say this will get better over time. It'll be able to handle longer and longer books. So now we have a plot synopsis. This is a 2,000 word plot synopsis. I'm not going to read you all 2,000 words, but remember, it can do 500 words, 1,000 words, or 2,000 words. And I think for a lot of authors, you just take the 2,000 word synopsis and you edit it down to what you want it to be. And this is a lot easier than trying to write this from scratch. The chapter summarizer works the exact same way, except the difference is instead of breaking down the plot in terms of acts, this will summarize each chapter. And it's really easy. You just upload your book and here we go. So for the chapter summarizer, another approach to this that works really well is you just upload one chapter at a time. And so here, this can turn your title of your book, your genre, and your book description into a query letter. So if you're trying to get a traditional publisher, you're needing help, this will take. I've done a bunch of episodes on query letters and agents, publishers. This will give you a rough draft. Obviously, you don't want to send a publisher this directly, but it can help. And then the book proposal generator works the same way, but it builds you the rough draft of a full book proposal. All right, now let's talk about branding tools. I'm going to be adding more branding tools over time. This is based off of something that James L. Rubart actually does, where you can find out the theme of somebody's life from their 3 favorite films. What it's going to do is it's going to analyze the plots and the themes of those 3 films, and then it's going to find the themes that those movies have in common, and then talk about its impact on your writing, what this has to do with your writing. This has been tested more than any of the other tools, and the authors who've used it, and you may have already used it yourself, I absolutely love it. And it's fun. It's just a fun little tool. The perhaps more marketing geared tool is the tagline Brainstormer. And this will generate a dozen or more taglines for you based off of your answers to these questions. So it generates 20 taglines based off of your answers to these questions. The more answers you give it, the better answers you will get. We also have advertising tools. So we have 3 tools here. We have an ad strategizer, a cover suitability scanner, and a reader profiler. So let's take a look at the ad strategizer. Here, you upload your book, you select which platform you want to create ads for, and you put your genre. So let's say we want X ads for an epic fantasy book. So we're going to upload the whole book. And so it will read the book, and based off of the content of the book, it will create a strategy for you to buy ads on that platform. So it's going to identify similar books, and it nailed these similar books. It's going to talk about preferred genres. It's going to create profiles for different kinds of readers, and then it will give you keywords to target those particular readers with ads. So this is really useful. You can do it for Facebook. I'm not going to run it for all the different platforms, but you can run it for whatever platform you want to try, and it will give you a customized plan based off of the actual content of your manuscript. It's really pretty cool. The ad suitability scanner is a bit like the book cover analyzer, but it's asking slightly different questions. It's asking, will this book cover work for ads? And if not, what are some areas for improvement? And so it will give you a report. The number one reason ads don't work is because the book cover is not an ad-friendly book cover. And so this will analyze your book cover and give you an idea if your book is even eligible, if advertising is even on the table for you. And if it's not, it will give you some suggestions for improvement. It's all about thumbnail visibility. If you want your book cover to work as an ad image, it's got to work well when reduced really small. And so often the things that make a really appealing book cover when it's really big get lost in the thumbnail version. And then we have the reader profiler. So a lot of people ask, where do I find my readers? Well, this will help you find your readers. This tool will read your book and look at your genre, and then it will identify potential readers for you and give you specific marketing suggestions for how to reach them. Is that not cool? I think that's really cool. This is the sort of thing somebody would pay me hundreds of dollars to generate for them if I offered it as a service, which I don't right now. So I'm not trying to sell you my services. I don't do this anymore. But you can get it here, right here in the Patron Toolbox right away. You don't even have to wait for me. It's got their psychographics here. It's got their interests, and it has marketing suggestions on how to reach that particular person. So that is the reader profile. So now let's talk about the email tools. The tool I'm the most proud of is this one here, the email drafter. And the reason I'm proud of this tool is because it's my first time to use branching logic to build one of these tools. What I mean by that is that it has a million questions, but none of these are required. The only thing that is required is a work in progress update, because pretty much every email you send as an author has got to include the work in progress update. This is the number one thing readers want from your website, and it's often the number one thing they want from your newsletter. But after that, it will help craft an email for you based off of the various things I've talked about that make for fun emails. You don't have to answer all of these questions. Just answer whichever one is appropriate. So what have you been reading lately? Any good book recommendations? So you put your book recommendations in here, and it will expand that into paragraphs worth of really great content. Are there any news headlines you want to comment on? So if there's something in the news, you put that here. Any book sales or discounts? Do you have any upcoming events? Do you have any good movies? Are there any good videos or blog posts from around the web? And so you just pick one of these. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'll put a real short review here. We'll click submit, and it will then build out an email just from this little amount of info. So it just makes it a little bit easier writing your emails, and it can take a little bit and expand it. And then you take this and you edit it down, you got your email, and you're good to go. Now, let's say you don't want help writing the email. You want help creating really good subject lines for the email. Well, that's where the subject line Brainstormer comes in. So you would just put your genre, you paste in the email if you've already written it, and then you answer in this optional question. Why would readers love reading this email? What's the primary benefit to the reader? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. And it will generate content-focused subjects. So then it's going to have reader benefit-focused subject. And then it's going to create creative or unique subjects. So it'll generate 36 email subject ideas for you. Surely one of these will work well, or at least get the creative juices flowing as you craft email subjects yourself. This is one of our most popular tools currently, because a lot of authors are already using this to brainstorm more interesting subjects for the emails that they're already writing. The next tool here is the Drip Email Sequencer. And this crafts an onboarding sequence for your email newsletter. I built this as a part of the Author Email Academy, but I figured if I'm going to make it, I might as well make it available for patrons as well. This will write a 4 or 5 email onboarding sequence for you that introduces you to your readers. So if you're creating an onboarding sequence, this will give you rough drafts for all of the emails based off of my training in the Author Email Academy. You don't have to have the Author Email Academy to use this tool, but if you do have it, you get it for free, or it's included with the tool, but you can also have it as a patron. So you answer these questions. Why do you write? What's your genre? You paste in your back cover copy. Share some of your favorite books. You talk about what you like about it. You paste in your about page. And just from that, it will write a really good onboarding sequence. I also have a sister tool to the onboarding sequence called the List Cleaner. So this will generate a 3 email sequence that reminds people why they subscribed, encourages them to re-engage, and if not, you say goodbye. And of course, it will tweak the wording to match your book. And then finally, we have the book reviewer and the movie reviewer. These work really similar to each other. In fact, I might combine these in the future. So I'm just going to show you the book reviewer for now. For this, you just put in the title of the book, the author, and the genre, and then a few bullet points of what you liked about the book, and then a few bullet points of what you didn't like about the book. And then the most important thing is the number of stars, because this can write a positive review based off of these bullet points and a negative review, and it's all about how many stars you give it. So we're going to give this book 4 stars, and it will take the elements that I liked and didn't like about this book and build out a whole review. So again, this takes those bullet points, it builds a rough draft, then I can go in and tweak this and very quickly get a very robust book review for this book. And it's really good. It's a surprisingly good tool. The movie review tool works the same way. I'll probably combine them, like I said, in the future. So next we have the beta readers. These are probably my most controversial tools. I built two, one called TwainBot and one called JaneBot. And these are AI chatbots that are trained on the writings of Mark Twain and Jane Austen. And I picked Mark Twain and Jane Austen because all of their writings are in the public domain. And what I like particularly about TwainBot is that he wrote a lot, not just his novels, but he also had a bunch of nonfiction books. He also gave a bunch of speeches that we still have, and he wrote 5 volumes of correspondence, many of which is on writing. And so you can talk to him. You can ask him questions about publishing. So you can say, should I indie publish? You can get Mark Twain's perspective on whether or not you should indie publish. But the real use of this is you paste in a chapter of your book or a scene from your book, and you can get feedback on your writing from Mark Twain. Things you can do better, things you've done well. It's surprisingly useful. One of the fun things about Mark Twain, this TwainBot, is that it quotes Mark Twain all the time. I've actually tuned it to quote Mark Twain, and it has all of the Mark Twain quotes because it literally has all of his writings in its data set. So it's really good if you're needing encouragement for your writing, or if you need some feedback, some quick feedback on some writing. The TwainBot and JaneBot are really good for that. Obviously, Mark Twain and Jane Austen wrote different kinds of fiction, and so they can give you feedback in different ways, and they'll answer the questions very differently. And they're also fun to compare to AI Thomas, because AI Thomas will answer the should I indie publish question very differently from TwainBot and JaneBot. And then finally, we have the last few tools. So we have a couple of reader magnet tools. One is the reader magnet Brainstormer. This can give you ideas for reader magnets. So you just answer a few questions, write fiction or nonfiction. What category does your book fit in? You put the pitch for your upcoming book. So much depends on that book blurb. And then you describe your target reader. And this is tuned off of all of my teachings on reader magnets. So it's going to pull from the sorts of things I suggest for reader magnets, but it's going to adapt it for this specific book. So we're going to have kind of 12 standard reader magnet ideas. And so then it will also create some kind of off-the-wall, super creative ideas. It's just going to give you a bunch of ideas. The students who went through the Author Email Academy who use this, and this is another one that's included in the Author Email Academy, were wanting to do all of the ideas. Don't do all the ideas. You only need 1 or 2 of these to work. But it's really good at generating ideas for your next reader magnet. And now it's time for the coloring page maker. This has proven to be, with some of my patrons, their very favorite thing. They just play with this all the time. I initially created this as a tool for YA, or like children's book authors, but adults like coloring pages too. So you put in your genres, and then you can describe the scene with as much detail as possible if you're really trying to match it to your book. But I'm going to just demonstrate this. I'm going to say a wood elf hides behind a tree holding a bow and arrow, and we're going to say it's for teens. Now this will take a while. You need to be patient as it creates a coloring page for you. But if you get this right, you can use these coloring pages to create a reader magnet. And here we go. So you can see it's got a lot of kind of intricate details. If I had selected adult, it would have even more intricate details, so that, toddler, child, teen, adult, you can think of that as a difficulty guide, but it will generate a coloring page for your book. I tell my kids bedtime stories. Now, it took one of the scenes from that bedtime story and turned it into a coloring page, and my daughter colored it, and it became a prized possession in the house. So this is just fun. You can use it for fun. You can use it for reader magnets. You can take these coloring pages and just put them on your website for readers. It's just fun. The final 2 tools are for educators, homeschool parents, teachers, or authors who want to make their books appealing either in a classroom setting or in a book club setting. So the first one we have is the lesson planner, where you can create a lesson plan to help teachers teach your book. And then we have a discussion guide builder. So we'll start with the lesson plan, and it's surprisingly easy. You just upload the manuscript, you select which grade this lesson plan is for, and you put the goal of the lesson plan. I added this because sometimes you have like a theological purpose, or the book teaches a specific thing that you want to gear the lesson plan towards, or, if it's just a novel, to help students fall in love with reading. So you click generate the lesson plan, and this will create a lesson plan that's a mix of teacher presentation and like interactive student elements. And the interactive student elements will be adapted for the age that you selected in that drop-down list. And then it will even have like discussion questions. Now, this is a rough draft. Obviously, you'll need to format this. Sometimes it comes out formatted, sometimes it doesn't. Like I said, these tools are still a work in progress, but we have 2 activities. It created a whole lesson plan. It may need a little tweaking, definitely some formatting, but a tool like this can make your book a lot more appealing for teachers, which can open up an entire new venue of selling your book to teachers who might get your book and recommend it for their students. So here is the lesson planner. The other tool is the discussion guide builder. And this is really simple. You just upload your book and it creates discussion guide questions for you. I had one of my patrons test this, and she said this performed better than Claude and GPT when she tried to do it on her own. And the reason why it performs better is that I'm accessing the LLMs directly through this tool, and I'm not going through ChatGPT or Claude's chat engine. And I have tuned it based off of my experience working with book clubs and working with authors. And what's wonderful about this is literally all you have to do is upload your book. Now, your other option is to upload just a single chapter or single section of your book. Now, some authors will want to include these discussion questions at the end of every chapter. So if you're writing nonfiction, having discussion questions baked into the book itself actually can be really helpful. And so uploading each chapter as you go and generating discussion questions can be really helpful. It can detect whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and it will adapt the discussion questions to the book itself. And so the idea here is not that you would use all of these questions, but it would give you some really good starting point questions to create a discussion guide with. This can be really difficult for authors because you already know everything there is to know about your book because you wrote it. So it's hard to come up with good discussion questions. Often authors write really awful discussion questions that are really leading questions, whereas this will create more open-ended, more conversation-inspiring discussion questions. And that is the Patron Toolbox. This is over 30 different tools, from giving you advice to helping you create book blurbs, to helping you have a better author website, to creating better covers, to help you interact with designers, to analyze the cover you already have, or even create a book cover for a reader magnet, to helping you get a publisher by creating a good plot synopsis and a query letter and a book proposal, to helping you get a better brand, to helping you advertise, to helping you send better and more interesting emails, and even getting you feedback on your writing, and getting you growing your email list with reader magnets, and then finally making your book more appealing for educators and book clubs. Currently, all of these tools are available for patrons at the $10 level or higher. So if you go to authormedia.com, just go to resources, Patron Toolbox. They're all unlimited right now. You can use them as much as you want. You can be a patron as long or as short as you want. And my hope is that these tools will help you sell more books and spend more time writing. And none of these tools replace your actual writing of your book. That's the fun part. I don't want to replace that. I want you to write your book, but the marketing piece, the connecting your book with readers, all of that busy work that often gets authors really irritated, that's the part I want to give you tools to make easier. So I hope you enjoy using these tools. I hope you give them a shot. And I hope that you live long and prosper.